Well, welcome to today's show. This one is on layout and ledgering for this tile job you see behind you. Roll title. All right, now that we got this done, what we've got is a large space. And what we're trying to do is, since this is the biggest piece, this will set up and define where on the wall we actually do our work, where we're going to start with, because we have a lot more rows and we want them to look nice and symmetric. Now this is a little bit further apart than what it should, so it doesn't really perfectly fall in line with a 3x6, but it's not bad. The 30-inch over by the stove is a lot tighter, it looks a lot nicer. But this will work. I think I may even come in here and put me some end of cabinet shelves, maybe put a plant, maybe glass shelf. I've got a light above it, so I don't want to hang too much in there, but just something in there, maybe something to put, you know, somebody take a watch off or ring off when they're washing dishes or whatever they're doing, put it up there. Think about adding some shelves in here. But how do we lay this out? Because we have a fairly long cabinet. If I step back out of the way, you can see it's a fairly long, it's over 10 feet. So we want to get it right. Well, I use what we call a ledger method. And what it does is because I can't always count on a countertop or a house because they're sitting on top of the cabinet. I can't count on everything being perfectly level all the time. So I do want my cabinets, when we hang the cabinets, we use a laser level to do that. We try to do the same thing when we set the cabinets, but yet they are not always perfect. Then we come back in and put our countertops in, and they may also not be perfect. So how do you do it? Well, what I'm trying to do is avoid this bottom row being wompy jawed. Now if I lay it directly on the countertop being granite, it's going to work pretty well because it's going to be pretty close to flat, I would think. And that's a good thing to come off of. The problem that I have is perhaps the counter or the floor is a little bit different than where we are on the wall. And I want the wall to be nice and correct. So what we do is I come in here, let me flip the light off. Now you see our little red laser shows up a little bit better. On the side down here, I just put a piece of tile. I've got it backwards because I've already tiled the wall. Put one here, put it on two spacers. And you say, why would I do two spacers? Because with two spacers, I know if I'm going to set my ledger up, which is a little piece of trim, just whatever I have, I'm going to set the tile directly on that piece of wood. Okay? It's going to go directly on that piece of wood, so I need at least a spacer on the bottom, and I need a spacer for the top and the width of the tile, and that gives me this thing we have over here, the two spacers under. Now I go to the other end, do the same thing. Whichever one is higher, whatever the line is higher than that, I have to go to the one that the red line is hitting closer, because that's going to be the low one, right? So I can always give a little bit more grout up underneath the line than I can if I get it too shallow, too short. So I go to the one that the line's hitting and I make sure my line lays up. The next thing you'll see is we have the red line straight up the middle. Now imagine if there's no tile here, I just have the sheetrock. What I do is I have found, with my measuring tape ahead of time, I have found where the center of the space is. Now notice that this is one of those Amazon laser levels, and it shows vibrations. But I would come in here, measure, find the center, mark it with a pencil mark, make my laser find that pencil mark, and then come up with my straight edge marking. And I want a permanent pencil mark at the very center of the pattern, because it's going to be center of the pattern that I'm going to use. And I'll roll some video now. After we get that done and I get my row started, the next thing I do is move the laser over one position so that it hits the adjacent head. See right here, we're on a tile. I want to come over next. After I get that one tile set, I want to come over and I want to hit this edge right here, the next head joint, so that, because I'm going to be able to see that line, pencil line through that grout line. I'll show you something we need to do for that. Now we remember our trowel. This is one for glue. It's got the smaller. what we're going to do on the wall so that we can see our pencil line, whenever we're in the center where that black line is, that pencil line we just marked is, we're not going to go up in that section. We're going to go across in that section so that we have rows of glue versus columns of glue or swirls of glue. And I'll show you when we roll this next segment, give you an idea what we're looking for, okay? Because that one was done in process and I was able to, use the cell phone. It didn't take a lot of setup with all the equipment, lights and whatnot for that. So, hey, appreciate you watching. Do me a favor if you will, subscribe to the channel, either the YouTube or the Rumble channel, which this appears in. And if you can, check the notification bell or settings to make sure that you get notified when new videos are posted. Appreciate it. We'll show you that and this will make a lot more sense. Remember, we're going to use this to mark the horizontal line the same way. And then we take and put on a little piece of trim, something. We just nail it up to the edge of that laser light based upon those two tiles we put out. Then we have a solid base to start our rows. Now when you use your glue, don't put on a whole lot, don't put on too much. It just needs to have the defined rows. And it's just like we talked about on the floor tiles. Because it's going to have those rows sticking up on a floor tile, it has a place for those to mush. If you have too much glue, you might think you're doing really good, but what you'll end up having is a clump where the glue has really no place to go because you've already got some tiles set and you're putting the one on top. It'll maybe ease out at the grout line when you get there or squish out the edge, but you can't really get it all out and you'll have a high tile there. So just use the lines it provides. And outside of the center, you don't have to go horizontal. But there's a reason why we'll talk why the horizontal on your glue trowel matters. Let's roll that video. Now I haven't put tile down in 30 years, but what I've got here is a laser level which weren't available to us common folk. And you see I got a little ledger made out of a piece of trim there, because I'm going to start with the second row working off the center. Doesn't really show unless I get real close up to, there you go. As you see, we got our workspace prep. I have the plan because I need to know how to hit the right spot on the cabinets because of the layout. I'm using a little thicker spacer there, but using them on the end, they're 1/8 inch. Cut a few end pieces, got my stack to get started with cleaned up, and we're ready to go. First day's worth of work. Now, next day we got to finish that corner down here. It's not really a corner, it's an edge. We're going to bullnose it at that line which falls in line with that top cabinet. So that's our line from vertical to the ledger, and of course we'll pull the ledger off and do that bottom row. Well, I laid this out using a laser first to draw a line on the board. But we've got our line at the bottom. That's a half of that tile going through the line, going through the line, going through the line. You might be able to see up here on one of them. I don't know if it shows. You can see it with the naked eye. Right there, I think that's it. We've got the line in behind of it. There it is. Alright, so it's in the gap. And that's how we find the top. Then we come over to the side, focus camera. Then come over to the side and do another vertical line with a laser so that we line up the next head joint, which would be the little vertical joint. Get that done. We've pulled our ledger off. We're getting ready to run the end down on the other side. Got a bit of a gap on the sides. It's just going to have to be filled in with grout. Have to do the top. Need something a little better than what I have right now. I got a saw coming over. Going to borrow one. Coming over with the help this morning. Let's see if I got it laid out halfway decent. Look at that joint next to it. Look at that joint next to that. It looks pretty even.